If you've just joined the call, welcome to the EdTech Showcase 2021 Monday. We have four EdTech companies who are going to be presenting today: Kara Technologies, MyMahi, Crimson Education, and Sunshine Publishing. And I think we'll give people another minute or so to arrive, and then we'll get underway. While we're waiting, just wanted to say that this is all being put on as part of Tech Week, which is an initiative of the New Zealand Technology Alliance. I am the acting deputy chair, wow, what a title, acting deputy chair of EdTechNZ, the Education Technology Industry Association. And co-hosting with me today, we have Peter Dong, who is the chief exec of a company called VR. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Dave. So VR, we're an EdTech company as well, but for this presentation, I'm a co-host. We offer digital technologies into classroom learnings for New Zealand schools. And the past year, we have taught directly ourselves to more than 100 students on how to create virtual reality projects. And on the way, we teach design, coding, and computational thinking that's aligned to the revised New Zealand tech curriculum. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. So I think we'll get underway. The first company to present today, and each of these companies will present a short video, and then we will have some Q&A. The entire session is being recorded, and so we will play that back. That'll be available on demand from anyone who's interested. So the first company to present today is Kara Technologies, and we will start with their video. So you just give me a moment.
Who is Nikki? Nikki is world's first hyper-realistic signing avatar.
First and foremost, I think it comes down to accessibility, the fact that deaf children can comfortably read a book. That's the idea behind it. The idea is for deaf kids to sit down and read a book in their field language, sign language. For a large number of deaf students at the moment, they don't have the skills or the knowledge to read book confidently without the use of a sign language avatar or even anybody signing.
She is a signing avatar, so we have to tailor the technology again in such a way that enables her to sign in a coherent manner. What do I mean by that? For example, in sign language, facial expression is extremely important. Finger movement is extremely important. So sometimes in the design process, they ignore that.
We did a pilot study funded by the Sign Language Board where we wanted to see if these students were engaged with the new technology. Is it something that they wanted to do? Is it something that they were engaged in? Is it helpful or detrimental to their learning? We found it was helpful. We found it was a great educational resource for teachers to use with the children.
Motion capture technologies for video games and movies, but those are not very accessible in sign language. So we have to, again, design the technology pipeline in such a way that is suitable for sign language. So we use motion capture technology, capture the human signing data, and try to, like Nikki will mimic. However, in some other application, Nikki would able in future to use the learning process and working on signing sections.
So, Arash, that's super exciting. So great to see New Zealand Sign Language, being used. And yeah, so tell me, what are some of the hurdles that you had to cross in order to get this technology across the line?
Yeah, the first hurdle was we started company at late 2017, actually on 27th of December 2017. The same day, the World Federation Day, actually, they sent us a white paper saying avatars are bad and they're going to replace human interpreters. So not really good to use the technology and artificial intelligence, ML, and motion capture and avatars for teaching deaf kids. And we start on that. So our first iteration with the dev committee wasn't very positive because of so many companies tried, because it's such a big problem, so many companies, they try to jump in and just try to solve it. So we start with that, and now we have the support from the dev community to not only do the educational materials, but also go to other areas and provide some help. So the hurdles are a lot. And the other thing is the majority of technology and tools that we are using are designed for, again, gaming or for movies, and they're not specifically designed for sign language. So how we do it from, again, with a tiny budget and investment, and make sure the business is up and running while we're doing the R&D. So many hurdles.
So tell me, how are you getting the technology out there? What is your main distribution channel? And do you have plans to distribute Kara Technologies goods and services overseas?
Yeah, so we just a little bit. So we did a 3 pilots in New Zealand, and we so they're mainly on education. But from the overseas, we did a pilot with National Theatre in UK, so making the theatre accessible. Because the whole idea and the concept are very new, so usually we do a small pilot, show it and showcase it, get enough data, then we go for a full commercial agreement. Obviously, like the overseas things are being stopped due to COVID, so we couldn't push it even harder, but things are now start going back to a normal business. So this is how we usually operate it.
Okay, hey, for people out in the audience, if you have questions you'd like to ask Arash or any of the other people on the webinar today, please just type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom call, and we'll ask those. What are your plans for the next development of the technology?
So what we've done so far was using motion capture technology. Now all the data that we motion capture it, we are recording it, so we're going to reuse it again. So we are using some natural language processing technique to make our solution more scalable. So instead of a human signer just jump into the suit and mocap everything, we are hoping to reach the point that the human just only review the translation. The other area that we're really pushing hard is on the emergency services, because when the emergency happen, usually take like a couple of hours to bring a human interpreter in. So how we can deliver the like very important information within less than a minute. So this is something that make us super busy these days.
Well, as you know, Rasha, I was one of the people behind the Dictionary of New Zealand Sign Language, and I can't wait for the day that I can hook up my sign language database to your production engine, and we can, just start signing things straight away. So we have a question from Chloe, and she says, will you only target the education market, or could the product be expanded to a broader market, such as corporate, to help with inclusion in the workforce?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we start with the education section because we believe that we can provide like the impact as soon as possible. And also when we did this pilot, a couple of people from deaf community approach us and provide other suggestions. So one of the things that I just mentioned was on the emergency services. So how we can provide emergency messages like public safety, stuff, especially the unfortunate event that happened in Christchurch. So it took like a couple of hours to bring the interpreter in, and I had a deaf friend in Christchurch who was saying, she was saying that she has no idea what is going on and see the people just running all over the place. So how we can provide this information on time. The area that we figured out because of the, so for the deaf community, sign language is the first language and English is the second language. So for me, because I'm from Iran, my English is my second language too. So I totally understand when you give me a big jump of text, it's very hard for me to digest the information. So we're thinking about how we can help banks to become more exclusive. So how we can help banks to help the client to increase the financial literacy. And also the other market that we're super excited about personally is how we can make multimedia more accessible, movies, etc., because we have a technology to get the character out and make it sign and put it back in the movie. So imagine Mickey Mouse in a movie signs, so which is super exciting.
That would be super cool. Hey, really quickly, last question. Are you targeting mainstream schools or just deaf schools? And is it on a user pays basis?
So mainly going to be deaf schools. We get some idea that it could be used for hearing kids who wants to learn sign language too, but our main focus is on the deaf school, and we're working with deaf education centers, which are responsible for tiny schools across New Zealand.
Okay, cool. Hey, thanks so much, Arash. We'll be back, have you back for the panel discussion, so hang tight. Now, Peter, over to you to introduce Jeff and MyMahi.
Hello, Jeff. Yeah, so Jeff is from MyMahi, and MyMahi is a student management platform that has over 600 students that are currently using MyMahi. And can we play the video, Dave?
In November 2018, MyMahi is now the fastest growing learning platform in New Zealand. Placing the learner at the centre, MyMahi is fully owned and managed by learners and is transportable for students between schools and beyond. MyMahi is designed in New Zealand for teachers and mentors to support individuals through their learning journey, personal well-being and future pathway development. Free for learners and New Zealand schools, MyMahi is simple and easy to access and use, requiring less work from teachers and better outcomes for learners. The MyMahi Learner web and mobile app provides learners with a range of tools, such as the newsfeed, which is the MyMahi landing page and is updated daily. Goals can be created, with both tasks and progress updated regularly. Learners can explore and record their strengths, passions and how they learn, and also record 3 good things in their personal gratefulness diary. MyMahi has over 1,200 current entry-level jobs, along with a comprehensive directory of all tertiary and training courses available across New Zealand. Once activated by schools, learners can view their assessment results, timetable and school daily notices. Other tools include a pathway planner, CV builder, work-ready portfolio, and there are more in development. The Mentor dashboard allows teachers to view a learner's profile once they have connected to a mentor group. Mentors can deep dive for more learner detail, such as their pathway plans and goals. Mentors can create notes and to-dos to share with individual learners, or have a group discussion with an entire group of learners, including sharing a MyMahi lesson from the growing bank of over 100 click-and-play lessons available for mentors to help learners to understand and develop their well-being, goal setting, learning habits, about money, personal organisation, and for them to prepare for the world of work. MyMahi Rewards is a paid add-on to the free Mentor platform and was developed to support school-wide programs such as PB4L, MyMahi Rewards is simple and easy to activate and use, with teachers and mentors able to give reward points to their learners, who are then able to view their total and details of the points received. For more information about the MyMahi platform and its features, please visit mymahi.co.nz or email kiaora@mymahi.co.nz.
Thank you, Dave. All right. So Jeff, out of the 60,000 students that are currently using your platform, what tertiary study are they pursuing from what you can see?
This is the interesting thing, I think, and probably a little bit of a disappointing thing is that the range of options that young people are looking at is still quite narrow. You know, nursing is one, teaching is another, med is another. And so I think if you looked back maybe 20 or 30 years ago, you would have seen similar kind of trends. You think these would have changed over time, but I think that until New Zealand sort of updates and spends a bit more time focusing on future pathways and has better labour market information, you know, I think some of these, a lot of young people aren't aware of all the options that are out there at the moment. But I think one thing that we have seen that is quite interesting is the rise in the trades and the interest around trades, which is obviously a good thing to see.
Okay. And what are the job categories that are popular amongst the students?
In the job section, it's mainly around the casual kind of work.
Yes.
So, you know, you've got Christmas casual, you've got part-time work, specifically entry-level jobs for teens, but there's also a lot of apprenticeships in there. So one of the things that young people told us last year before we created this section was they wanted to make that first step into employment. And obviously the first step for many teenagers is getting that after-school job or that holiday job. So that was a feature that we brought in because we felt that there isn't necessarily a platform or a job board, etc., that caters for young people. Most of them, you know, the bigger ones are generally 95, probably 98% of the jobs they can't apply for. So we just wanted something quite specific for them to be able to get in and have a go and get that foot on the employment ladder.
Great, thank you. And to the audience, if you have any questions, please fire them through. And Jeff, so in the last part of the video, I mentioned points can be given from teachers and mentors. What can these points be used for?
Well, a lot of schools run a program that was brought over from the States called PB4L, Positive Behaviour for Learning. And that's around a values system that sits within the school. And what schools do is it's really to, rather than focusing on the negative and you know, being a sort of a punitive system, it's a system where young people are rewarded for showing values, whether it's in the classroom or outside the classroom. Something like, there's over 1,000 schools that run PB4L within New Zealand. One of the things that's quite difficult is that in many schools, it's still a paper-based system. So collating the data, actually just running the system as a whole is really laborious for those people that are in charge. It also means the learner can't necessarily track where they're at with their rewards. So again, we were approached by a number of schools because they were already using our platform, looking at how we could introduce a rewards type system into MyMahi. So again, it became a bit of a one-stop shop and made life easier.
Thank you. And we just have 2 more questions from the audience and we'll move on. So the first question looks really good. What's your go-to-market strategy?
So in terms of cut through, in terms of getting into schools, is that the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. So
I think the thing was we knew that in many ways, this is a new segment. And so it was a case of, in schools, I guess, like many other markets, the thing is that the first thing people will say is, who else is using it? So it was getting those key schools on to begin with that we worked quite closely with. And then what we find now is that you know, schools, it's all word of mouth, it's all organic growth. So it's finding those key partners to begin with who who align, who you can talk to, who you can have good comms channels with.
Great, thank you. And here's a question from Truman. Hi, Jeff. How did you keep students using the online forum on MyMahi instead of other social media?
What we wanted was, again, schools were saying to us that having the ability to just have a safe channel for teachers and classes was really important. You know, with the fact that some students would contact the teachers via Messenger, etc. So they needed something that was much more, because the senior leaders have oversight of the message boards and stuff like that, the discussion boards. So that just made it a lot safer than other features. And we actually developed that during lockdown, because again, schools wanted to look after the well-being of their students, but how could they do that without having necessarily a communication channel? And again, something that the whole class could potentially participate in.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Right, and now we'll move on to our next speaker, Jamie from Crimson Education. I'm sure Crimson Education is a very known brand and company amongst the audience. And Dave, can we please play the video? Thank you.
Crimson Education.
It was set up just 4 years ago by an 18-year-old student, and it's now worth more than $140 million. It's got a network of more than 2,000 tutors and mentors.
Well, Jamie Beeston is the founder and CEO of Crimson Education, now 22, I understand. So, Jamie, how have you managed to set this up alongside your own education? You've set up this company now worth millions of dollars.
Growing up in New Zealand, there weren't many students heading overseas. My own experience is navigating 10 A-levels, going to Harvard, and navigating that process gave me a lot of perspective on how to do this. From there, it's been a brilliant team and amazing, support. Frankly, though, the biggest thing's been the success of our students. Ultimately, how well we do for our students drives growth of the overall organization, and it's been the incredible results that's really driven the best. Every country has different processes, every university degree is quite distinct, and everyone has big implications on your future. So we really help our students navigating whatever is the best fit program for them anywhere in the world. So our network is incredibly diverse. We've got over 2,000. That includes seasoned educated experts. So there's a huge diversity in the age and background of the mentors. The key thing is the high caliber.
And how does this mentoring take place, this tutoring? Is it via Skype or FaceTime, or do the mentors meet the students in person?
So it's actually a blended mix, and we think that's the most effective combination. So we've built an online classroom experience for our students that lets them, roadmap out their future and plan the different years of university. They can work with all of their mentors online and share resources, but we also have in-person delivery. I guess the key thing is that many of our students are signing up when they're 13, 14, 15 with the view that they're going to spend multiple years in high school navigating this journey with us. The key thing for us is helping them unpack their interests and then build their profile, whether it be through leadership, through extracurriculars, through better subject choices.
This is another example, really, of how you just have to be wealthy to access the best education. Surely it's not really fair for those people who can't afford your fees.
So one thing we're really focused on at Crimson is access, and we have a really good financial aid system. So any student, as long as they're willing to work hard, can apply and get scholarships and funding for our programs. And from day one, we're really committed to making sure that whatever students can, have the potential to go overseas, go through us. Okay. And we've sort of also done that through our platform, Crimson Hub, which has got more than 4 million views and has free content that helps students navigate the process. So we're really trying to improve the baseline level of access for anyone in any country going through this journey.
Okay, Jamie.
Fascinating.
Thank you very much, CEO of Crimson Education. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Dave. Kia ora, Jamie.
Hey, how's it going, Peter?
Hey, good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Excited to chat.
Great. Thank you for joining us. So I'll kick off with the first question. So one of the common questions around parents is that what are the differences between, say, NCEA, Cambridge, and IB?
Yeah, sure. So NCA is obviously New Zealand's national curriculum, and it's typically assessed through a combination of internal and externals. So students kind of get points throughout the year based on a variety of assessments. A-levels is an exam, originally designed in the UK, and students go through several levels: the IGCSE, the AS, and the A2. And an A-level includes an AS and an A2. The exam structure is all at the end of the year, all through final exams, as opposed to these internal assessed results. Then finally, you have the IB diploma. The IB is the most restrictive of the three, in the sense there's a set number of subjects, 6, that usually take 3 high levels, 3 standard levels. Now, the benefits of it is it really forces you to be broad, because you have to take a combination of humanities, sciences, etc. And my kind of quick take on this is that, generally speaking, if you're trying to challenge yourself, it's going to be a lot better to take the A-levels or the IB, because generally they're about 1 to 2 years ahead of the comparable NCA qualification. And they're also a bit of an international passport. So you can take these credentials, go anywhere in the world stage, to the most competitive schools. So most of the Kiwis that I've sent in the last sort of 8 years to schools like Harvard and Stanford, etc., typically have A-levels or IB. We have sent a lot of NCA students overseas as well, but it tends to be the case that those curriculums are generally not as challenging. And so I'm generally a bit of an advocate for kind of reform amongst, for the NCA curriculum within New Zealand. And I do think if I had to settle on one right now, A-levels would be sort of my curriculum of choice.
Great, thank you. And how have you coped with the Kiwi tour populism and your advice for other founders?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I think I would probably, answer this through the lens of some of my students. I think in New Zealand, there's a real drive to, not kind of put your head out a little bit. And so many of my students, by the nature of their goals, they're aiming to forego domestic universities and go to great schools like, UC Berkeley, which I think Dave went to, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, other great schools. And this means the student by necessity is trying to be a top academic student, a top student in the extracurriculars. They're trying to strive for leadership roles in, a social environment where students might be sort of, telling them they're a bit of a tryhard, for example, things like this, to use some common Kiwi slang. And so I think, ultimately it's been 8 years. We've sent hundreds of Kiwis to these really top schools, thousands to, broader institutions. And we've seen time and time again that going down this path that's more challenging, more difficult, requires more work in high school, the family to really get behind the student, produces, superior outcomes. So many of our alumni are now at places like Google, Facebook, they're working on amazing banks like Goldman Sachs, they're Rhodes Scholars, etc. Some young Kiwis have now gone to Silicon Valley and they've launched their own companies through Y Combinator, the same accelerator that produced companies like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Brex.
Yes.
So, I think it's worth it, take a bit of the heat that goes through being a bit different, and the results, generally are a lot more exciting. So I think that's kind of what I'd say in general. As far as being a founder, I think, being a founder is all about kind of proving people, wrong. When you raise fundraising, as most Kiwi entrepreneurs, New Zealand's not a very well-capitalized country. So you're going to get, 50 no's probably for every yes across each stage. When you want to hire great people, they have many, many options. And so, you really have to fight to bring in that great talent. And as you get larger and larger, the momentum of that snowball rolls and rolls. So today, Crimson's in a great position, but it's been 8 years of dedicated work, and I think that kind of willingness to keep pushing is sort of what defines, I think, good founders in this EdTech environment.
Right, thank you. And how has COVID had an impact on your business?
Well, actually, just over a year ago, we launched the Crimson Global Academy, which is New Zealand's first and only registered high school where students across anywhere in the country can take the A-level curriculum, and they can do that alongside their physical school part-time, taking extra subjects, or full-time. And that school is led by Sir John Morris, who used to be the headmaster of Auckland Grammar School for more than 20 years, and has great educators behind it, like Larry Summers, who used to be the president of Harvard. Now, naturally, during COVID, online schooling's become normalized, but traditional schools really struggle to deliver online. They struggle to embrace tech in general. And so we've seen some providers that are quite good online, but generally most physical schools handle that transition in quite a difficult way. And so we've seen a big surge in interest in our school. So I think we already have more than 400 learners in the school. And I think prior to this, the biggest first year launch for private school in NZ had about 70 kids. So we're really excited by the traction, and we should be bigger than any of the traditional private schools in NZ pretty quickly based on our current growth rate. In terms of our core college admissions business, we help high school students getting into the world's top universities. And this has always been a disruptive transition from offline, consulting in person to this online platform with thousands of mentors and good guidance. So during COVID, that's really, I guess, benefited both in kind of competitive dynamics where Crimson's online first platform is obviously sort of, easier to engage with when offline options aren't available. But also I think on the, flip side, we own some businesses like Numberworks, which is traditionally a brick and mortar, tuition center offering with about 70 stores across India and Australia. So during COVID, we had to kind of make that business go all online, which, was a bit of hard work, but, well worth it. And I think it's prepared it well for the future. So overall, I'd say generally net good for Crimson with some, heavy duty quick shifts to be made in certain small areas of our business.
Right, very impressive. And we'll end with, actually, there's a question from the audience. Okay, we'll end with this question and then we'll move on. Of the students that leave New Zealand and study abroad, what are the trends showing about them returning to New Zealand to work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess, first of all, on a principle kind of level, I think it's very important that we do not create a culture where young Kiwis feel like they've got to stay in New Zealand or it's sort of like taboo or the end of the world, because basically the best way for our economy to thrive is for a young talent to go overseas, where required, get great training, work in these institutions that train them very well, places like Google, Facebook, etc. They can come back to New Zealand, be the next awesome tech founder with like a rigorous background. So to answer your question, a lot of our alumni go to these great schools, then go settle in London, in New York, in China, and many of them start coming back in their late 20s or for even, straight after graduation. But we don't necessarily push our students to come back, directly after their degree. Many of our students choose to do that anyway, but, we think generally speaking, the more we can upskill our young Kiwis and give them opportunities on the entire world stage rather than just domestically, kind of that's net good for Kiwi income on the world stage. And I think that sort of talent, incubation is very critical, especially in a country like New Zealand where we have big issues with computer science education. Many of my alumni want to go and work in the tech industry. They want to learn computer science, but almost no New Zealand high school has rigorous computer science training. So I think overall, I'm a big fan of our young Kiwi talent getting trained in their 20 to 30 age range, wherever in the world's best for them. And then hopefully New Zealand can benefit from their skills in the long run.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And Dave, we'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Jamie. I really loved your last point about, we're currently living in a global world and it's becoming ever more so. And, people worry about the brain drain. In many cases, it's a brain gain as we gain really great people from overseas, and we have all of our ambassadors, our Kiwis who are overseas in overseas markets, helping us along. We bring the world closer together, and it's a wonderful thing. Cheers. So speaking of bringing the world closer together, next up is Dame Wendy Pye and Sunshine Publishing. I'll just share her video.
Every day, sunshine spreads across the world, into classrooms, to parents, and children all over the planet. With a digital collection that teaches reading, Sunshine Book Room, Sunshine Primary Club, Sunshine Classics, Sunshine Online, a digital collection that offers sound educational products for bringing English language learning to a world market, enriching interactive experiences of listening to, reading, speaking, and writing English using engaging fiction and non-fiction texts. Research has proven that students using digital resources make significant gains in their literacy acquisition, and that's what we're all about. Our international partnerships give us worldwide exposure. China. Millions of Chinese children are being taught English via the internet using our product. We partner with NetEase Udale, an online education brand with over 800 million users among the largest number of users in China. NetEase creates learning apps, hardware, and educational technology focused on interactive and artificial intelligence. This is how they are using our product.
Hello. Every day.
Every day.
I go to school.
I go to school.
I meet my friends.
I meet my friends.
And we all say.
And we all say, hello, hello. How are you? I'm good, I'm great. How about you? Na, 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 na. Hey! Using interactive reading live online.
All those
The twins
to show the tutor on the
the
side.
bread.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Great. Can you say hungry? Hungry.
Hungry.
Yes, perfect. Hungry.
Hungry.
Hungry. Well
Showing
done.
the tutor.
Interactive math stories and activities are incorporated. Counting from 1 to 10. Let's read a story.
Dave,
Counting
you should
sheep.
show the tutor. The tutor is
Man.
here.
One sheep,
It's
1 sheep.
2 sheep,
2 sheep. Click on the animal. Look,
click on an
the
animal.
big hippo. Can you see the hippo? Let's choose it. Ready?
Counting hippos.
Counting hippos.
Click on the numbers one at a time from 1 to 10.
Okay, 1 to 10. The teacher then signs off at the end of each lesson.
拜拜，我们明天晚上7点不见不散哦，拜拜。
Another large market is Malaysia, Thailand, and India. Here, we market the Sunshine Super Reader.
Here is the library with the books and activities. They are already loaded, so children work offline. There are 392 leveled books and over 2,000 activities to read and enjoy.
The Super Reader package contains a preloaded Android device, a padded carry bag, and a parent user guide. Along with our global partners, we at Sunshine are committed to delivering quality digital reading material to children all around the world and to instill a lifelong love of learning that strengthens their language skills and shapes their understanding of the world. Sunshine, teaching the world to read.
Sorry, Dave. I thought that it was me with not a screen. I hope everyone saw the tutors because we have hundreds and hundreds of tutors teaching the children individually with an interactive screen. So we interact with the tutors actually.
All I can say is na 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 na. I mean, it's fantastic. Wendy, you're probably one of the most successful.
We're the only publisher chosen for NetEase. They're moving. I think their last 3 months was 8.5 billion on the New York Stock Exchange. So it's really quite a nice company to be the partner with.
So look, you've gone from New Zealand textbooks to textbooks all over the world to distributing digitally all over the world. What's the secret? How can the rest of us emulate you?
Hard work and millions of dollars of my own money. Millions and millions of dollars and trial and error as well. I think the hardest thing was we had to move everything from flash because we started when it was dial-up and I went out to the world to sell an idea and everybody threw me down the stairs, right? That's why I'm a tall lady. I got thrown down the stairs. Nobody understood the vision. And COVID was a great thing because people accelerated the vision in schools. You know, the big problem is teachers don't know how to use technology in the classroom. And we must get our training colleges and our universities to teach them how to use technology effectively in the classroom.
Look, we have a question from Neil Edmond, which is a really good question for all the companies I'm involved with as well. How do you find your international distribution partners? What sort of process?
Oh, I just went on a plane, you know, I just went out to the world. Some people threw me out, some people, you know, there are 4 companies now controlling the world of the digital input into the world, and they're the big guys in America. Most of those are billion-dollar companies. They're controlling the world. We're a minnow compared with because what they've controlled. But I just went out. I just went to every book fair, every trade fair, set up my little shop. Went down pathways, stayed at cheap hotels when I began instead of the Ritz-Carlton, which I stay at now. Went to all those places and just, you know, made lots of mistakes, hundreds and hundreds of mistakes. Nobody believed in what I did. I just went out to the world, and I don't have any university degrees or anything. I am just one of those people that went out to the world to make it work. How's that?
So how did you maintain that self-belief while you were doing that?
Well, I believe it every day. When you know the feedback, when you teach every child, reading is the way out of poverty to a degree, and we know this. That's why through my foundation, I have a very sizable foundation, and I give to New Zealand schools. I work with Maori children and Pacific Island children, because unless they learn to read, Crimson cannot do its job properly. We are not going to have, if we have a huge group of children who are not reading, they need to read to get a job or to feel self-good about themselves, you know. So basically every morning the sun comes up and there's a new opportunity every morning. How's that?
Excellent. Well, fantastic. I would like to now open it up to the panel, and I will use that last part of your answer, Wendy, to ask all of the panelists. You know, the last year has been really terrible in so many different ways, and we've been immune from it in New Zealand in many ways. And you know, we haven't had any major health issues. You know, the education system has been difficult for international education here, but by and large, we've gone through the pandemic largely unscathed. My question for each of the panelists is, what has the last year taught you? Not about how the world was or the issues involved in the pandemic, but about what the world could become and what education could become in the future. What have we learned from the past year? So let's start with Arash, and we'll go through in the order that we had the presentations today. Arash, what have we learned about the way things could be in the future for EdTech?
Yeah, so little background. So I am actually originally from Iran, and the situation of COVID really hit hard the countries like Iran. So it's a really negative time to be, but at the same time it has a very positive side. So as Wendy mentioned, it accelerates some of the vision ideas, especially with the area that we are working on for disabled education. It figured out how innovation technology can provide help, and how these visions will look like foggy and far ahead, and like somewhere there could be reach out way faster, and it could be much more efficient in terms of using the classical approach and this classical way of education.
Awesome, thanks, Arash. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I want to come back to, I think one of the points that that Wendy made is we need to improve our teacher training, because I think before, if people are not aware, just before the pandemic hit, there were a whole lot of schools trying to run a massive professional development around how to use technology, because teachers had sort of neglected it for a number of years, thinking, oh, it's, you know, maybe it's going to go away, or I'm going to retire before it happens. But it really showed that, you know, within that teacher education, teachers need more of a focus on education technology and how they can integrate it into their curriculum, into their programs, and get the best out of it. I think, you know, people were always like, oh, how's it going to work from here on in? You know, there were some big changes that were made in some schools. I don't know if they've been maintained, unfortunately. And that may be just the schools that I've seen, but I think, yeah, there's a lot more we could be doing. And again, you know, Jamie was saying about computer science in New Zealand schools, things like that. You know, there's a lot more we could do to build on some of the lessons that we learned from COVID, but I just don't know whether they're happening. Maybe I'm not across it enough to see, but yeah, I'm a bit of a, you know, there's a lot more that needs to kind of move if we're to capitalize on, you know, what is essentially in some ways an opportunity.
Thank you, Jeff. Jamie, what makes you optimistic about where the world could become? through EdTech?
Yeah, so I guess if you think about the physical school today, there are a number of constraints. First up, they've got to recruit teachers from a short radius around the school. So you're inevitably very supply constrained, and then you're limited by the scale of the school. So you can't offer all of these niche classes. You can't offer an investing club. You can't often offer like a law or psychology program. I think what's exciting about COVID is it's sort of awakened the focus of blended learning. In the research around school performance, blended learning has been really championed for quite some time, but blended learning is defined as having a physical school with students who can also tap into various online resources. So the idea of, for example, a physical school in the middle of Kerikeri with, online courses from various providers that, enable kids to do things like computer science online or accelerated math means that some of the constraints of the physical school are taken away. I think the physical school has a lot of value. You can build friendships, you can go to orchestra, you can play some rugby, but for the actual instruction time, often online can beat that delivery for many reasons, and tap into stronger quality teachers, particularly in a supply constrained country like NZ where there are so few computer science teachers. So I think COVID's basically made people a lot more realistic about blended learning, more keen to try it, and I'm seeing this because a lot of the world's large private school chains are investing heavily in this kind of experience. So we still see a bit of slow development in some of the public schools sector, schools, but the sort of more innovative school chains are jumping on this quite quickly. So overall, that's kind of what I'm quite optimistic and excited about and sort of building our strategy around.
Cool, thanks. And Wendy, over to you.
Yes, I suppose during lockdown was the most disappointing time for me because this was the one time, may never happen again, the one time where the Ministry of Education, the people who sit in Wellington, could have joined with people like us who deliver hundreds. So we tried to reach out and say, we can deliver it, other players can deliver it from the international market, we will make sure that every child will transfer it from the school to the home. They couldn't cope with it. They were like rabbits in a little hole who went woof, woof, and I went woof, woof, and they ran away. So there's an example. So we just took over, and 120,000 kids every day. We built a branding exercise, which is fabulous. So I go to Wanganui, I walk down the street, everybody knows Sunshine. I had a branding exercise. So COVID was good from a branding exercise, but the Ministry of Education were very disappointing. This was the one time that we could all work together. We worked together in the forestry industry, we worked together in the dairy industry. What's the hang up? What's the hang up about somebody like me working with them for early childhood? They couldn't cope with it. They could not cope with it. So they tried to get rid of it from the minister down, they tried, but that's okay. We just went out, our team worked night and day, a whole team of people, we worked with people, and we built branding, which you can't. Branding is very strong. So they can't do anything with me now. Here I am, I sit here on this lovely seminar. Thank you very much, it's good. So what joy, what joy. But that's the problem. You need to have a vision for New Zealand, for the young children, and also for, what our other speakers are doing and things. You need a vision. That's what they lack. They lack vision, and they're frightened of private enterprise. And if you can crack that, by the way, Dave, I tell you what, the first drink's on me. I'll even take you to dinner. How's that? But I've been trying to do it for a long time. So, believe me, they'll talk and say the right things, but they do not believe in private enterprise in education, unlike other countries of the world. In America, they believe in private enterprise. In Australia, they believe in private enterprise. But in New Zealand, they don't believe that we should exist.
So Wendy, other than drinks and dinner, which is a very nice vision, what is your vision for New Zealand education that the ministry should be adopting?
I hope that they'll listen and they'll say, there's that Dame Wendy again, but never mind, doesn't matter. That's why they gave me a damehood and a doctor of education and a few other things, but that's okay. They can't take those away.
What's your vision?
My real vision is that there are thousands of children not even coming to school. We really need to make school very meaningful. Honestly, if they do not learn, by read and achieve by 8, I say every child should be reading fluently and understanding mathematics by 8 years of age. If we achieve that, we have achieved something really in the community. And that's what we need to do.
Right. Anyone else want to share their vision with us?
Just building on that, one thing that I really care about is geographic mobility. So the idea that you can be born anywhere in the world. I mean, there's nothing stopping you going all the way to the most amazing institutions of higher education, the best career paths. If you want to go be an entrepreneur raising venture capital in Silicon Valley, you're not disadvantaged because of wherever you are born. So I think basically this kind of idea that, education, should be rock solid everywhere and necessitates, EdTech, because there's no way that a school in the middle of the Ukraine and a school in the middle of Tokyo and a school in the middle of, Waiheke Island is all going to be the same if we rely on physical schools only. So I think basically using EdTech to unlock this kind of geographic mobility is very crucial to our strategy.
Excellent. Jeff, Arash, you want to?
Yeah, I think the thing for me is a big, and schools are starting to shift to this thinking, is for a young person to be able to talk about what they're passionate about. Be able to talk about their strengths rather than it being from a place of, often they're reported on and it's negative, and strengths are really broad, and sometimes school is really narrow in the parameters that it measures. Schools are starting to have these conversations with young people, and so young people can articulate these kind of things, and when they can articulate them, it means that then they can look at pathways that perhaps encapsulate them. And I think that's really important. Like I say, schools are starting to do this, which is the wonderful thing, and that's why we've had such growth with our product. And young people are starting to capture their own life story and their own journey, their learning journey, and taking that with them wherever they go. So that's really exciting. And I think for that to continue, we can, that leads well into some of the other things that the presenters are talking about in terms of, how you get ahead, where do you go from here? If you can capture that story and who you are in yourself, I think, you're in a good place to have some positive outcomes for the future.
Dave, just one quick thing, and I'll be very quick because I don't want to hog it from other people. Thank you, that's great. We've signed the contract, and in a few weeks' time, in about another 8 weeks probably, we are working with all the refugee schools in Lebanon. There's Oxford University, there's us, and a few other companies like Bill and Belinda Gates, who are still talking to one another, which are quite good. And our content will be beaming on basically will be repackaged on digital packages that will be given out to all of the refugees. And we've chosen Lebanon because I think Lebanon is fabulous because it has Iraq, Iran, Syria all coming into that one place. And so that's exciting. A first for the Southern Hemisphere, actually. We're doing that under our foundation, but I think it's really good fun. It's good to show how New Zealand can lead with Oxford University.
Fantastic. Thank you. Arash, do you want to share your vision with us?
Yeah, so I really agree with everybody else. I just want to add one more thing to the vision is when we talk about like fintech, biotech, nanotech, and edtech, education has the least technology in it in terms of like bring it in. And I think as an entrepreneur, we believe that like education market there's a place that you can show and really, really innovate and use a really, really hard technology to provide an alternative to current little bit messed up situation that we have in education. So my vision is to really prove that for like, we always see like the kids with the special needs are a little bit burden for the government, etc., etc. And I think if we could work together, there is a better solution for it. That's my vision.
Awesome, thanks, Arash. Now, our last question comes from Dylan McFarlane, and he asks, is there a role for the large tech companies to support applied learning beyond the basic curriculum? So, should Spark, Network for Learning, Microsoft, Slack actually be doing more to help our students beyond the basic curriculum? Anyone want to?
Google Classroom is. I mean, Google Classroom is trying to control the way that many children interface at the early levels. I have no experience at the high levels, but I'd be interested in the other speakers, what Google Classroom is doing.
Jeff, could you use support from the company?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, again, if teachers know, if they can supply the kind of material that is useful and it's packaged in a way that's useful for a secondary teacher, that's fantastic. But again, do teachers know how to make the best of that? And I think coming back to that point before, some of them are not able to utilize potentially the technology that's there. I think one thing that we don't see, like my background secondary, I was 25 years in the classroom, is that engagement with industry and education in New Zealand. With businesses, it's a really tough nut to crack. And I don't know if anybody I've seen, you know, anywhere where the overseas is doing it quite well, but in New Zealand, we're still a long way away. So they definitely have a role to play. Yeah, but again, it's bringing all the players together and piecing it together. I think it's really difficult.
All right, thanks. Jamie or Ross, you want to address this question?
Yeah, sure. I think actually what's quite interesting is there's been a number of really significant players entering this classroom space. There's companies like, for example, Class in China, which has raised about 200 million USD in funding just to build an online classroom experience. It's really built for, you know, this kind of pain point. So I think Google Classroom's doing some cool stuff, but there've been a number of really focused companies entering the space. There's two other ones in Silicon Valley, one by the founder of Blackboard and another, I think, called Engagely. And they're all really building this idea that, you know, Zoom is solid, but it's not sophisticated enough for all of the, you know, potential use cases that online enables for a school. So, you know, these guys are building a really dedicated platform. So it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, their innovations as they kind of pour this money into R&D and kind of what comes out the back of it. But I can imagine if you fast forward sort of 2-3 years, there'll be a number of really focused kind of education classroom offerings that are really quite fit for purpose.
Thanks. And Arash, I'll leave you the last word here. How can the big tech players help improve accessibility?
You just pick up a phone and call. So what we did actually, when we started in 2017 in New Zealand, so we needed so many resources, and we look at, okay, we need a game engine. Who's the best company? Unreal, the $1 billion company. We just pick up a phone and say, hey guys, we are doing this. Help us. And they were like, okay, so what you guys are doing? Send us a sample. They saw the samples. Ah, you guys are Soul Machine. That's so great. No. It's a different company. We just bunch of coolest students in university. When they saw it, they helped, they provide was immense. We need a motion capture technology because who's the best? We call Wycon. The CTO is Kiwi. They give us a loan of the coolest, like just arrived yesterday, of the best, like Hollywood level technology accessible for us in small company in New Zealand. So I really encourage everybody to just pick up a phone and just call, because big players will help. And especially with the area that we are in, because it's helped them with the social responsibility that they have. And because I'm an immigrant myself in New Zealand, so I was being thrown away from the stairs a lot, like you, Wendy, and from the country and borders. So I don't mind to pick up the phone, and really works. And if you be really honest and share the vision to the people, help is coming in. So I personally am not shy to ask for help. And yeah, that's how it works.
Good on you.
We're out of time. I wanted to thank our panelists very much. I'd like to thank our audience for coming along and listening, and just remind people, if you haven't already, you're interested in becoming a member of EdTechNZ, have a look at our website. We'd love to have you join us and contribute to the conversation. We're having two more showcases, one on Wednesday and one on Friday of this week, both at midday, and we hope to see you there. But for now, I'd like to wish you ka kite. Thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you in the future. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.